Okay, this has been a pretty interesting week, and there's definitely a lot to be spoken about, stuff of which I normally don't discuss on this podcast, but considering all the serious shit that's been out there, I figured, what if we just deload a little with some of my content? And I'm not just saying this because it's my content, but all in all, I'd have said that this topic is about dating, but since I don't mind being a little bit more specific, minus a couple of bills here and there, it's about wifing, and more wifing. And that probably encapsulates most of what this episode is about. Although, before I can get into any of this wife material that is waiting for me, pun intended, I first want to start by recognizing the fact that this episode was recorded during the time of Pride Month. And considering that I have not addressed Pride Month, not that, I really give that much of a flying damn, but considering that I am going to go on break after this episode, and for the most part, I have a story here that is in relation to Pride Month, I figured I might as well handle it. So our story comes from the US of A, where the LA City Council members have removed no U-turn signs in a gay neighborhood, and apparently they say that that's because those signs are homophobic. Now, normally I usually look at some of this shit and I just laugh my head off, but how is it that the one time we expect you to do something that isn't related to being gay is the one time that you fail to try and do something that the rest of us heterosexual people do? Like, I don't know, driving. How the hell is it that driving straight is such a problem for y'all?
The royal penis is clean, Your Highness.
I'm actually very curious to see the reasoning behind this, because no U-turn signs are actually supposed to be on the road, not necessarily to deter the LGBT community. It's usually just for the drivers to not make U-turns on the road, but I don't know. I want to see what kind of explanation is there. Now, there was a bit of a video that I didn't care too much about because there's a press conference that I don't give too much of a flying shit about, but the caption that did come with this entire story says, and I quote, "The last remaining street signs that were used to target the LGBTQ plus community in Silver Lake in the 90s were removed. City leaders, along with local LGBTQ plus organizations and community members, gathered near Griffith Park Boulevard and Hyperion Avenue to take down the last several no U-turn and no cruising signs, which were installed in the 90s when neighbors complained about a gay bar in the area. They were essentially used to prevent people in the gay community from meeting up with other gay people." End quote. Okay, so let me get this straight. The street signs that were for cars were being used to target the LGBTQ plus community in the 90s. Let me just try and think about that again. Signs that are on the road were used to target, I don't know, maybe it's just a me thing, but don't these people probably blow this shit up a little bit much? Because I don't know, yes, maybe there's a gay bar in the area, and maybe some people might feel some type of way. But are you really saying that it's worth doing all the work of going to get the street signs gazetted and planned for and put up around those streets? It seems a little bit much for me and a little bit too mundane of something to do to affect the LGBTQ community, because it's not like they're the only people that drive there. And also, I don't know, maybe it's just a me thing, but maybe gay people just can't drive properly. Maybe the one thing they're expected to do straight is actually an impossibility for them. And I can back this up considering the fact that we've never had any motorsports athletes that have come out as gay or that are known for being gay. There's never been a gay F1 driver. I've never heard of any gay MotoGP riders. I have never heard of any gay rally drivers, even motocross, which is bikes. I've never heard of any athletes there that are gay. So that should mean in some way, shape or form that the LGBT does make for particularly shit drivers. And before they try to drive me off of my own podcast, I might as well start things off, because I have eaten into quite a bit of time, by kicking it off in a way that doesn't care about your sexuality in a slightly more straightforward manner by saying, welcome to the Breakdown Podcast, where I talk about love, sex and relationships from a guy's perspective, as well as a bunch of other guy shit. The man on the mic is a man who is great at driving and great at riding. Everything except dick. I do not play against the home team. He's a man who might find it hard to breathe if you've got that asthma. It is none other than your tall, dark and mildly handsome man, Sir Denver B. This episode started in a less straight way than I'm normally used to, but you know what? We like to accommodate people sometimes, and I like to seem like I'm a particularly nice person. And if you did like the intro or if you didn't like it, you can hit me up. The social media handles are usually in the description below. Or if you don't want to go through social media and you want to come to me direct, in the most straight way possible, then there is a link at the top of the description which you can use to hit me up and speak to me directly without having to go through social media if you'd like to air out your grievances. But all in all, thank you so much for listening to this podcast. I hope you listen all the way till the end of this episode. And considering that I am at the end of this season, this is about the time when I tell you about the shortened versions of the episodes, less editing, much shorter, one single topic, that I usually do whenever I'm on break, just so that I can give myself some time to relax, not have to think too much, not have to compile so much. And I usually release it on the same exact days that episodes come out, and it's usually for about 2 to 3 weeks as I prep to come in for the next season of full-on episodes that are 20-something plus minutes long. And if there's anything that you'd want me to discuss, you can hit me up through social media and on the link that is in the description above. And as usual, I will take it from there and handle it accordingly. Just like this episode, which, as is traditionally done with our Friday episodes, it usually involves me diving into Twitter, breaking down a couple of topics here and there based off of the tweets that you guys kind of send to me or some of the ones that I do find online. And I usually talk about how the drill is super simple, almost sounds like a song, and I break it down. But for now, considering that it's the last episode of this season, I think we can take a pause on that one. If you want to send them to me, you can send them through the social media links down below, and I will take it from there and handle them accordingly next season, which is in about 3 weeks. But all in all, I have a couple of tweets that I want to break down real quick, but before I can do any of that, first of all, we need to talk about something that has been bothering Kenyans for the past week and a half, which is the finance bill and the fact that us guys are being overtaxed. Now, we have had our mandamanos, we have gone out there, we have protested, we have demonstrated in one way or the other, offline or online, and it's good that we're doing so. The only thing is, I don't know who it is that's been praying and who it is that has such powerful prayers, because y'all have been praying in the wrong direction. Because while you've been praying for the government to reduce taxes, Senegal's president has actually been reducing taxes. Same exact prayer that we were supposed to get. And for those of y'all that probably don't remember about this guy, I actually discussed him a couple of episodes ago because the guy won the election. I think it was from prison or some shit. And he's one of the youngest African presidents. And on top of all of that, this is the same guy that people were remembering based off of the fact that he has 2 wives. And it was this thing for African red pillars who are busy talking about this guy is the way and this is the goal, or a man must be polygamous, blah blah blah. Now the post regarding this whole tax story says, and I quote, Senegal's new government under the leadership of President Bassirou Diomaye Faye has unveiled a new set of measures meant to reduce the cost of basic commodities and staple foods in the country and address cost of living and inflation concerns. President Faye, 44, who won unchallenged in Senegal's March election, vowed during the campaign to address high living costs in the West African nation that heavily relies on imports, promising voters that he will prioritize the cost of living within his first few months in office. Under the new measures, prices of select basic commodities and food items have been reduced by between 5 shillings Kenyan and 18 shillings Kenyan, the government has announced in a media conference. The reductions, which also cover cement and fertilizer, will take effect in the next few days, the Government Secretary General Amadou Al-Aminou Lo has told reporters, adding that the government will be stepping up random checks to ensure traders comply fully when the new prices take effect. Senegal's budget minister, Sheikh Diba, during the media announcement, revealed that the government would also forgo taxes and customs duties imposed on importers to subsidize the price cuts expected to cost at least $87 million. The government, however, has not revealed how long the measures would apply. The president said in a statement that the measures are meant to cushion the ailing economy until we find a sustainable and long-lasting solution to the cost of living for the people of Senegal. End quote. And end of story. Now, like I said, some people were busy praying and they had very powerful prayers. Problem is, they were praying in the wrong direction, because Senegal, not that I'm saying shouldn't, receive price cuts and like a lot of tax deductions to improve their economy, but it's like their young president actually did some shit. Now, the president that we here in Kenya have is increasing the taxes. as if, we can tax ourselves into profitability. But then again, I don't know the loan situation there, and I'm sure there's a lot that we don't know about Senegal, of course. But to be quite honest, I feel like if this was how our president actually reacted, we'd actually like him a hell of a lot more. But nigga has found every single thing to try and tax us on, that we're getting to a point where, frankly, I think he might just legalize prostitution just for the sake of taxing hoes and making money out of it. And the worst part about that is, a lot of the initiatives that the government usually sets up to try and cushion people and subsidize costs, he's taking them away. So you're like, if you're taking away the money from that, and you are no longer trying to commit to it, and you're still taxing people a hell of a lot more, even though it's paying off loans, to what end? How big are those loans? I don't think even Japan, which has 100% of its GDP as debt, is busy taxing people that much. But I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I like the fact that Gen Zs and millennials came out, they've protested, and we've said that we do not want this shit anymore. Honestly, I have never seen a situation where one leader has united people this much. But frankly, if this is what it's going to take for us to actually stop dealing with very corrupt politicians, then I'm all in for it, so we can unite under this collective hate. Either way, I'm going to leave it at that and move it on to our tweets for this episode. So on to our very first tweet of this episode, which was actually written up by a woman who was busy talking about wifing, and she said, and I quote, "This guy got transferred from Mombasa HQ to our offices here in Nairobi, and he was telling us how life is down at the coast. He said in Mombasa, men from upcountry, or bara, marry without knowing. You invite a babe for a night, you pick her up in your Nissan Note e-Power, and then she goes on to give you one of the best nights ever. Worthy of those the day I will never forget compositions we used to write in primary school. In the morning, you wake up to find your bed empty. You thinking that she's stolen from you, you get out of bed panicking. You get into the kitchen and you find all the dishes sparkling clean. You rush outside and find all the hanging lines full of clothes washed. Even your neighbors have nowhere to hang. You try tracing her only to locate her coming into the gate carrying breakfast draped in only a lasso. You are confused. Kindness humbles even the most fiercest of beasts. She tells you softly, so you come in, have some tea. She sets up tea served in a red thermos you didn't know even existed until she removed it this morning. And the tea tastes superb, with karafu, hiliki, mdalasini, and I don't know what not else in there. After tea, just as she is about to return to the kitchen, she gets up and the lasso accidentally, quote unquote, slides, revealing brown Digo thighs. You grab her and back to the bedroom. You wake up at 10 a.m. and realize you're late for work. You apply for half-day leave and get to work at noon. On your way back home, you meet Mzee Omar. He owes you 500 shillings. You ask him about it and he replies that he passed by your place and left it with your babe. You get home. As you enter, she receives you like a king, handing you a towel and soap and escorts you towards the bathroom. And she says, sorry about work. How about you get into the shower so that you can shower and then you can come out, we eat. Hey, gai fafa, mwadhani, nyasai, gaki. You're perplexed. What's going on? After bathing, you take supper, which is pweza, aka octopus soup with fried rice. While relaxing after the meal, your body starts reading temperatures last witnessed during the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. You grab her straight into the bedroom for marinating. Feel stronger than ever. You deliver horsepower only a Toyota Fortuner delivers on an uphill climb. Little did you know, it's the octopus soup. Fast forward 2 years later, you're the father of twins, a boy and a girl. Being single at the coast is your doing. End quote. Okay, now I know that this particular tweet was pretty long and normally I don't do it, but hey, for the sake of this story and the fact that dude broke it down this well, I totally didn't mind talking about it. Now, is this sort of treatment the kind of treatment that can lead a guy to practically getting into a situation where he is in some sort of co-parenting or come we stay relationship with a babe? Yes, definitely yes. Oddly enough, a lot of people tend to think that guys want some sort of complicated relationship, but shit like this is the stuff that disarms them. You find that a babe, after taking pipe from dude is finished, he's feeling relaxed and everything. The post-nut clarity is about to tell him that this shorty was just for the shag, and shorty all of a sudden turns into some sort of homemaker while trying to be sexy as shit, and niggas just find it hard to let the babe go. And the truth of it is, it's not like it's something that just happens in the coast. Now, of course, these are things that also happen in Nairobi, but not to the extent that they happen in the coast. The octopus soup isn't as readily available, of which, for anyone that's asking, yes, seafood does tend to have properties that can be aphrodisiacs, and, it has been said for quite a while that if you want, natural aphrodisiacs, go and have a bunch of seafood. So the octopus soup actually does make sense. Now, when you kind of look at how this babe was carrying herself, like, it wasn't even just the octopus soup. That one was like, it was an end of the day thing. That's like icing on the cake. Most of the cake was her just being an actual homemaker, of which there's a lot of babes that do this, and guys don't even know how to get rid of such babes. You find that a guy picked up a shorty or met up with a shorty, and he ends up smashing her at his place, and shorty following morning, she's busy cleaning the house, busy doing the dishes, she's busy dusting the living area, and dudes don't know how to act. You don't know how to be like, yo, just stop, I need you to go home. Like, it's so hard for guys to do that, especially after the pipe. And the interesting thing is, the way the shorty comes back at dude, it's like, dude is going to lay pipe again. Especially when, like, a babe has, like, very little in the way of, like, skin and clothing, and like, stuff's jiggling, and, like, shorty's looking all good, especially when she's wearing very little on, or just a dera. Like, niggas have fallen for this shit since time immemorial. And it's not like it's something I'd be like, oh, guys need to guard themselves against it. Nah, a lot of times you find that if a babe does this, and usually this is just the simple shit, you find that dudes end up being secured so easily, as opposed to a babe trying to go above and beyond, trying to gift dude, trying to do what and what. Like, this is the simple shit that has locked tons of guys down for eons. And honestly, if a lot more women could actually get this through their heads, that they don't need to do that much to please a dude, then, there's a lot of dudes that would probably be faithful to them. But then again, at the end of the day, if a guy wants to cheat, he is going to cheat. But stuff like this makes it a hell of a lot harder, because you're like, am I really willing to start messing things up like this with this shorty, and she already gives it to me that good? But anyways, I don't know too much about this, so I am going to leave it at that and move things on to our very next tweet of this episode, which is actually a response to another tweet. Now, the original tweet said, and I quote, "She'll submit to you naturally if you lead properly," end quote. And the babe that decided to respond to this said, and I quote, "All this submission talk is getting boring, especially because people don't understand it. At this point, just find someone who aligns with your values, makes you happy, and pushes you to be better because you want to give them the world and they gave you great sex. Done." End quote. Now, can I say that I agree with what the original tweet was? Well, no, not really. But can I also agree with what this other babe said? Well, mostly. Because, to be quite honest, the whole idea of submission, at least on the internet, and even in a lot of social discussions today, has been, can I say, mostly misunderstood or misinterpreted by a lot of people. Because from a lot of women's sides, you find that the idea of submission is practically being subservient to the guy completely, and just taking all of the shit and practically choosing to be the man's slave and servant or something of the sort, or a maid. I don't know. Then on the guy side, it's like, oh, you know that you have to get a babe to be submissive so that you have a good partner, and for you to get there, you have to be an alpha male. So on one side, it has a derogatory look to it, and on the other side, it's something that you are using as this sort of achievement, once you hit the end goal, which is you becoming some version of an alpha male. So if a babe isn't submissive to you, and whatever way you think submissive is, then you suddenly feel like you're not that great of a guy. And honestly, this is a stack of bull. All right. The idea of submission, yes, much as it could be subjective from person to person, I think for the most part, depending on the person that you're talking to, is probably not very well understood. So if you're talking to a woman about being submissive, it's most likely them choosing to be subservient, and they'll probably look at it as a derogatory thing or something that requires a guy who has a massive amount of resources. And if you're talking about it with guys, is either being used to describe the ideal version of a partner, or some babe that is fully subservient and doesn't usually raise her head to challenge him on anything. Either way, I feel like this talk of being submissive is a little bit overused, and it's one of these, what do I call it, podcast regurgitating talking points that people use that just doesn't really carry as much sense for a lot of people today. Either way, I am going to leave it at that and move it on to our very next tweet of this episode, which says, and I quote, "My boyfriend of more than a year requested to see my parents. He met them 2 weeks ago, and after that, things changed between us. His calls reduced and he hardly responds to my messages. I tried asking him why, but he didn't say anything. He didn't reply nor returned my calls for 4 days. On the 5th day, I called him 3 times and he didn't pick up. 30 minutes after my calls, he sent me a message that he can't continue with the relationship because he saw poverty in my family. He added that we don't have a good chair for visitors to sit on, we drink tap water, our ceiling is already damaged, and he was lucky it didn't fall on him, and that he can't get into a family that will depend on him for financial help. Since after reading his message, I got so broken and my spirit has been down since. I responded to him with a voice message that I never hid my family's financial status from him. He said he didn't know it's that bad. I've never felt so sad in my life. My father used his farming business to see me through university, and I just finished my youth service. I need advice on how to stop feeling depressed and move on with my life. He blocked me on all his social media handles and blocked my number." End quote. Okay, now, do I agree with what dude decided to do with his supposed girlfriend or possibly fiance? Yes and no. Yes and no. And I'll explain why in about a minute though. But before I can do that, first of all, it's actually pretty interesting when babes, or at least in this case, this babe, realized what it's like for guys when a babe rejects us or turns us down because of our financial situation. Like, it's very, very demoralizing, especially considering that it's not something that you can actually control on your own. Now, of course, it's not like it's her personal finances that are being scrutinized here, it's the entire family's, but the feeling is more or less the same. It's more or less the same. It hits a little bit harder because, it encapsulates the entire family, not just, you as an individual, but I can kind of get where he's coming from, which is why I said that I do agree, but I also don't agree. The reason why I don't agree is because it's not like she's asked him for money, or at least as far as this tweet goes, it's not like she's mentioned asking him for money or him needing to upgrade her. Like, all she said is that they've been dating for more than a year. So we don't know if this baby is going to ask for money. We don't know if this guy is going to be expected by the family to contribute. So him jumping to that conclusion is probably a little premature. I'd say stay with the babe a little bit longer before you can make that consideration, because if the family starts asking before you guys are married, then you'll know it's a definite red flag. But up until then, you will have to go and check with the babe, does she ask you for money? And if she's being black taxed, how heavy is the black tax? Because now that'll end up impacting you as well. Now, I do agree with him, because in as much as they haven't started, it doesn't mean that they won't start. Now, don't get me wrong. It's not like people have to marry from the same exact social status or with someone that's, financially stable. That's something that you can't control. That's something that you probably wouldn't even think of for the most part. But I have seen stories, and I know for a fact that the moment you get to a point where you're married and one of the families is really black taxing one of the people, it can actually impact your relationship with your partner, because they may end up asking you to help sort out their family issues, because you now, at least at that point in time, or it's possible that at that point in time, are the one that is more financially forward, if I can call it that. So you find that if this guy probably married this babe, hypothetically speaking, you don't know if the family would look at him and be like, okay, so shorty ended up marrying this super rich dude, so let's see if we can get some shit out of it. And they'll start going and complaining. They won't complain to the dude, they'll complain to the babe. They'll talk about how, we really need to fix the roof, or we really need to do this, we really need to do that. And this babe will feel like, let me see how I can help my family. So she might use her funds and then ask for some of his, or she might just go straight to him if probably she isn't making all that much money and be like, babe, I really want to do this and that. you mind giving me some money? Or she might just go and be like, I really want to see if I can make my parents' lives a little bit more comfortable. How about, you help me with some cash so that I can do ABCD for the family? Or my family is going through ABCD and I can't sit here all financially comfortable and everything, and yet my family is suffering. How about we help them? Or how can we help them? I need you to help me with this and this, or can you give me some money so that I can help them with ABCD? So at the end of the day, it's like whatever black tax she might be having or she might be going through, she ends up imposing it on you. And this isn't necessarily just the woman to the man. Sometimes it's even the man to the woman. Like, it's not something that's dependent on like which gender is doing better than the other. Like, at the end of the day, you find that in quite a number of cases, one person's black tax from their family can actually end up impacting you and sort of including you into that black tax. So now it's like you're contributing to the in-laws' family's financial situation or lack thereof. And it's situations like these where you find that one partner is concealing their wealth from the other because they know very well if they do not conceal their wealth, then that money is going to end up being pushed to the in-laws family or to one of the other families because some family member decided to swallow a wheelbarrow and they fell down a lake. Or, maybe I'm wrong about this shit and people should be helping each other. And black tax is just some shit that Gen Zs usually say to just speak ill towards helping their families. Either way, I want your thoughts on it. The DMs are open. On X, it is at Bagaka the D. On Facebook and on IG, it is at the Breaktime Podcast and the Breaktime_podcast, respectively. There is also the link at the top of the description. Thank you so much for listening all the way till the end of this episode and till the end of this season. The shortened episodes continue next week, and I will catch you guys on the next break.
But what I believe is that if you put a pastor and a prostitute in one room, one is likely to convert the other.